Hi, this is Tammy. I do math for coffee, and I'm not gonna lie, I needed a whole pot of coffee to be able to do this problem. This one sucks. Part of the reason I wanted to show you this is because sometimes when you have a difficult problem that's going to take a lot of steps, people think they're doing it wrong, and you're not. So let's jump into it and I'll show you. The first thing I did, just to see if it would work, is I squared both sides. Don't do that. Don't do that. That's not your first step. All right, what I'd like you to do first is isolate those square roots, which means we are going to add this square root of 8 plus x to the other side, so it's with the -1. And that means I have a square root on one side and a square root on the other. I do not have two square root terms on the same side. That's the key. Okay, so now what we have is, I'm just recopying it. Now from here, we are going to square both sides. Now this side, with the root 3x plus 7, when you square that, you just get 3x plus 7. I wish the other side was that nice, but it's not. We're going to have to remember something. When you're squaring something that has two terms, this is kind of the general form that your answer takes. This is going to work like that, except these terms, this one term is pretty ugly. So the first thing is a plus b squared. So a for us is this -1, and the b is the root 8 minus x. So the first thing we're going to do is square the -1. That's this a squared. Now we're going to go plus 2 times each term. That would be the a and the b, which for us is the -1 and the square root thing. And then the last thing is the b squared, and this is the b term, the second term. And we will square that, and that's going to come out real nice. All right, I'm already out of room. And yeah, you should make sure you have plenty of paper for this kind of problem too. All right, let's clean this up a little bit. The 3x plus 7, I'm just leaving that alone right now. -1 squared is a +1. Then the 2 times the -1 is a -2, and that's being multiplied times root 8 minus x. And square root of 8 minus x squared is just 8 minus x, and I kept it in parentheses just to keep it apart, just to kind of keep it as a grouping. We're going to do some combining. We have a 1 and an 8 here. So the next line, 3x plus 7 equals, well, the 1 and the 8 make the 9. The -2 times root 8 minus x is the same thing, and then the -x is still there. Now, I'm going to subtract 9 from both sides. I'm still going to try to isolate this square root, so we'll have to square again, but I'm going to subtract the 9 from both sides, and I'm going to add the x to both sides. So 3x and x makes 4x, 7 and a -9 makes a -2, and that equals -2 times the square root of 8 minus x. More room. Now we're going to square both sides again, but not yet. I think I can factor a 2 out of the front, and then I'm going to be able to cancel that. So I'll take a 2 out of the front. Now I did something kind of clever here. In order to cancel a +2, that was actually a -2, so 2 times -1 is still correct. But I want you to be really careful, because it's a really common mistake to lose this negative when you're canceling just the +2 part from both sides. You're still left with a negative there, so I'm going to put a -1 there. Now I'm rewriting. And now we're going to square both sides again. So 2x minus 1 squared. We still need this thing. So we're going to go, 2x is the a, so we're going to go 2x squared plus 2 times 2x times -1 plus the -1 squared. And then on the second one, this thing, we have a -1 multiplied times the square root term. It's actually just two things multiplied together and they're both being squared. So you need this rule too, that when you're taking two things that are the product and you're raising them to a power, you can put the power on each thing. Okay, with these two little rules from exponents, we're going to get 2x squared plus 2 times 2x and then times -1 plus the -1 squared, and that equals -1 squared. Now there's two -1s here, but this -1 that's squared with the red, that's over here. That's that b squared term there. This -1 squared comes from this term. Okay, I'm just going to recopy that and make some room here. Let's clean this up. 2x squared, well, you gotta make sure you're going to put it on both. So 2 squared and x squared would be 4x squared. 2 times 2x times -1 would be minus 4x, and -1 squared would be +1. Now square the -1. You get +1 times 8 minus x, because this is the reason we were squaring. We wanted to get rid of this. All right, we have no more squares. Yay! So let's do a little cleanup. All right, I need to have a 0 over here, and then we're going to end up having to factor. I told you this wasn't a fun problem. So I'll subtract 8 from both sides, and I'll add that x to both sides. And what I'm going to end up with is 4x squared minus 3x minus 7 equals 0. All right, now we need to factor this thing. I'll put a link in the corner here for the factoring video. If you've never seen it before, I'll take you through it. 4 times -7 is a -28. I put that in the top part of my little x. The middle term is -3. You're looking for factors that when you multiply them are -28, but when you combine them are a -3. Those two numbers will be -7 and +4. Now we copy into the box the first term, which is 4x squared. Then we're going to use these two, -7 and 4, for the -7x and the -4x. When you combine these, you get that -3x in the middle. And then the last box would have the last term, which is -7. Now we're going to factor out. What we can factor out of the top is an x. That's all that can go into 4x squared and a -7x. And what can you factor out of a 4x and a -7? Nothing, but that just means you don't have an answer of 0. That means you're going to pull out a 1, +1. Okay, now factor up. Well, I can take out a 4 out of both, and I can factor an x out of both. So this will be 4x. And these are both -7, so I can pull that -7 out of both. So 4x squared minus 3x minus 7 equals 0. Okay, now we can solve. Now, since both of these two things multiplied together equals 0, it means one of them must be equal to 0. And so we set up two little equations and then we solve. Okay, I'm going to add 7 to both sides here. And I get 4x equals 7, and then I'm going to divide by 4, and I get x equals 7/4, which is 1 3/4. And on this one we got x equals -1. One of these answers may be wrong, or they both may be wrong. You have to check your work on these. And the reason I'm saying that is because we were doing squares. Whenever you are solving radical equations and you start squaring both sides, you introduce the idea of irrelevant answers. They come in. So you have to check these. You can't assume they're both correct. So make a note. You're going to check them. And so here's the original problem, and I'm going to substitute my information in and see if I get true answers or if one of them comes out weird. So I said 7/4 is 1.75. I'm going to plug that in. And when you subtract these, do you get a -1? Well, no, you actually get a +1. So this is not an answer. The 7/4, we can't use that one. Don't automatically assume you can use the -1. You need to check it. So let's pop the -1 in there. Well, the square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of 3, and yes, -1 does equal -1. So yeah, this works. All right, I want to show you something else. You're probably going to hate me after I do this, but your teacher would not accept this as a solution anyway. They're going to want to see your work. But another way to double check to make sure you've got what you need to get is to graph the functions. So this is the function. And the original problem was, where does this equal -1? And we got 2 answers. So let me zoom in here so we can see both of our answers. Well, the one that worked was saying when x equals -1, y equals -1, and there's that point right, come on, there it is. So that works. The other one we got was x equal positive 1.75. Well, that would be over here. So since the graph is above the axis, it's not equal to -1, but to find it, 7.5, right there. And we figured out when we checked our work that the 1.75 gives us an answer of +1, which is what we see on the graph as well. You're going to get graded on doing your work, but you can always double check your work with a graph. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next problem. Bye.